Boom bump, boom bump, boom bump, boom bump, boom bump, boom bump. Greetings, Justiguys. Justiguys arrived. Last event, 100 line. Academy. So we're going back in time to reject Eito's love. It's your future. I'm curious what this will change, if anything. Sorry, Eito, but I get it. You don't have to spell it out. What? My other senses have been greatly heightened now that I've lost my sense of sight. I already know what you're going to say next, just from your general vibe. I can also sense how agonizing this decision is for you. So it is enough. You don't have to say any more. I'm not interested in putting you in yet another painful position. We're still a minute in, so I can't say what I thought. I mean, Eito, who could blame you for not wanting me to join, right? Those glitched memories embedded in me may have been the root of cause, but it doesn't change the fact that I chose to do what I did. But you destroyed your own eyes. I did it because I wanted to, and certainly not to garner sympathy. I knew something like this wasn't going to be enough to regain your trust. I knew it wouldn't conveniently make us friends again. I knew all this, but I still couldn't stop myself from holding out hope. I may lie to people on the outside, but I never lie to myself. It goes against my nature. Now that that's settled, if you'll allow this public nuisance to beat a hasty retreat. Retreat where? You're gonna leave with your eyes like that? The invaders will get you! Your ugly concern is most gratifying, but there is no need to spare me any. Like I mentioned, my other senses have been greatly heightened. I expect to have no issues handling any invaders I come across. Oh, this also won't be my first time leaving the academy. I probably know more about the outside world than any of you. It's still too dangerous. Just because I don't want you back on the team doesn't mean I want to force you to leave the whole school. If you promise to stay in your cell and not interfere with any of us, you could stay. Have you forgotten this facility was built for the Special Defense Unit? It is no place for someone who doesn't belong. Am I right, C-Ray?
Ouchie is correct. Anyone not recognized as an ally is naturally viewed as a dangerous element. An element that can only work to our detriment and never to our benefit. Therefore, he must leave.
That makes it easier for me to get over my feelings too, now that I no longer have to put up with your unbearable voices and smell. You little piece of chicken shit. Always the same right down to the end, eh?
I shall be responsible for seeing you off. I expect you haven't gotten used to your newfound blindness yet and may need a little bit of help getting around. This is my duty and obligation as your commanding officer.
The commanding officer has spoken. The rest of you can just stay put. Not like I could see your hideous mugs even if you did come. Besides, there is something I need to speak about in private with C-Ray before I leave.
With me?
If you don't mind, consider it my last wish.
Yeah. Very well, you may tell me along the way. You are still considered a member of the Special Defense Unit while on school grounds.
Thank you. Very much obliged.
This is goodbye. Forever. You miserable freaks. And you may not think me sincere when I say this, but I pray from the bottom of my heart that you will win this war. Good luck.
Interesting. After that, under C-Ray's guidance, Wait, what? I made my way carefully through Last Defense Academy in total darkness.
Yeah. Here are a few days' worth of rations as a farewell gift from me.
Wow, this is surprisingly thoughtful coming from someone who only really cares about victory. I continued conversing with C-Ray as I walked next to him in darkness. It may have been the first time we ever had spoken at leisure. A manifestation of guilt for embedding those glitches into my brain.
Defects were inevitable. The brain, especially the human brain, is a complicated organ no one completely understands yet. It was no mean feat getting everyone combat ready with the limited time and resources available to us. So, you can't get mad at us for only having high school students, because that's all the time we had to make. There was no time for multiple rounds of tests or verifications, although we did conduct an endless amount of simulations.
Yet even with that, out came some Yet even with that, out came someone like me. I don't know what to call this, but destiny.
After Shirai and I finished talking, I left Last Defense Academy behind. I remained cautious of my bedarkened surroundings as I moved through the city ruins, using my feet to feel the rubble. Even though I had proudly declared that I could handle myself, moving around in total darkness was still rather mentally straining. Where are we going with this? Darkness, darkness, darkness. Everywhere I went, I was greeted by pure, unadulterated darkness with not a speck of light to be found. I couldn't be sure what was on the road ahead of me. Did anybody come see me off? Even though I said there was no need, maybe someone watched me walking away from school until they could see me no more. No, that's not possible. What am I hoping for? Nobody there cares about me. I'm nothing but a traitor, bugged to betray. But then again, this terrible defect reflected the repulsiveness of its creator, mankind itself. And I was equally repulsive for allowing them to lead me by the nose all this time. By the time I realized that, it was way too late to do anything about it. I kept walking. My destination was second to Last Defense Academy. C-Ray had given me the directions on how to get there when I left. He said it would give me a place to hide from inclement weather, and that there were probably leftover rations there as well. That was incredibly nice of C-Ray, actually. C-Ray likely told the others I would be heading there, once they learn I won't be ending up in a ditch somewhere. Those who had been even the tiniest bit concerned about my welfare would surely be able to breathe easier. Personally, I'd rather not feel a single shred of guilt, even if anything should happen to me. It didn't chase me out. I decided on my own that I would leave. Although C-Ray had given me directions, wandering through the ruins without sight, I couldn't tell for the life of me whether I was even going in the right direction. But if I wanted to keep going, I had to put faith in the path I had drawn out in my mind. There was also one more thing to keep me going. I wanted to witness how things would turn out for the others on day 100. They were special to me, even if we didn't manage to become friends. To someone like me who used to be disgusted at the mere thought of having to coexist with hideous humans, I now knew theirs were just fake memories implanted into me. Still, these were people with whom I had spent a staggering amount of time. Did you? Weren't you like in the cage from day one? I think they're kind of forgetting that the first 100 days didn't happen. Even after discovering they were actually empty inside. That everything had been lies built upon lies. Interesting, they're only using the people that are still alive right now. They still chose to support each other and blaze a trail through destiny. Have we seen this I feel like maybe we have seen this picture before. Yeah. Commune was here, right? And, because I distinctly remember Nozomi giving the peace sign. There was nothing we could trust. Nobody we could lean on. Fake memories, fake goals, fake backgrounds, fake families, fake friends, fake love, and fake hatred. Empty vessels made out of fabricated falsehoods. That was all we were. What could such people even believe in? Yet they chose to believe in each other and to fight for each other to the end. Their revolting appearance, smell, and voices still disgusted me to no end, but the feeling of camaraderie they shared was as real as they came. Watching them had made me forget all I had done and start wishing I could be a part of. Oh, Eito! No! No, Eito, no! But they weren't naive. Gouging my eyes out as a show of my commitment was never going to be enough to convince them to let a repeated traitor like me onto the team. I had been ready to face rejection, but deep down, for a short, fleeting moment, I entertained the thought that they might forgive me after all. Such an indulgent thought that was. When had I become so naive? But now was not the time to dwell on such thoughts. I had to focus on walking. I'd arrive somewhere as long as I kept going. All I could do now was keep walking and pray that I would eventually reach the second campus. Pray? No god would listen to the prayers of an empty shell like me. I'm curious, are they going somewhere with this, or is this just an elongated, bad, quote-unquote end? Ew, darkness clung to me. From the skies above to the ground below, all I could see was unadulterated darkness. No gradients, no flickering, just plain blackness. I read in a book that humans invented fire out of their fear of the darkness at night. When I read that, I mocked them as weaklings in my mind. The birth of fire led to the birth of war. Humans would burn themselves up in the very same breath fire they sought. There would have been peace had they not created such a thing and simply endured the darkness of night. How weak and hideous. I remember thinking that once. Now, however, I knew how wrong I had been.
It was not that they feared the night or failed to endure the darkness. They were afraid to not have light by their side, for light represented hope itself, and these eyes of mine would never see light again. Why was I feeling sad about that when I utterly despised everything I saw in this world? Day 8X. Uh-oh, it looks like it's burning. Oh, this place. After a few days of non-stop walking, I stepped into a facility that felt all too familiar to me. Right, this is... It would appear that I managed to reach second to last academy after all. To be honest, I was beginning to wonder if Sirei had deliberately given me wrong directions. I guess he's not as wicked as I've imagined. I naturally drifted in the direction of the cafeteria once I was inside. The layout of the school was almost exactly the same as the other one, like I had been told. This place would shield me from the elements as I waited out the remaining days. There would be no fighting. I only had to wait here in safety until the missiles were launched and everything was over. So he's just screwed, right? But there were over 10 days left. I'd have to live in darkness until then. Or there was a faster way to end things. I opened the heavy bag I had been carrying and traced my finger along what was inside. I knew what it was, even though I couldn't see it. An undying flame bomb Sirei had developed. What? Activated using hemoanima and powerful enough to take out even Veshness. This miniaturized version was still more than capable of reducing a human body to ashes. Skin, bones, hair, everything would disappear.
If Veshness comes for you, I would like you to use this before she absorbs your cryptoglobin.
That was what Sirei had said when he handed... Okay, you know what? That actually does make sense. We would just... What the hell is written on his back? Well, whatever. However, I was not able to discern his true agenda. Did he really want me to blow myself up and take Veshness with me, or was he simply giving me a tool to euthanize myself like an animal? There you are. I ran my finger over the detonator. Everything would end when I pressed the button while infusing hemoanima into it. I would be freed from it all. Free from my fake memories, false hatred, and empty existence. Free from the man called Eito Justiguy.
Press it. Come on. It's all you have to do. Why can't you just press it?
My finger wouldn't respond, no matter how loudly and harshly I berated myself. Even though I knew pushing the button was all I needed to do to be freed from this pain, I still couldn't do it. Wanting to witness how things turned out for the Special Defense Unit was merely an excuse. The actual reason I couldn't do it was because... When I realized what this feeling was, I had to laugh despite myself. I was afraid. Afraid, fearful, spooked, daunted, anxious, just scared stiff. Death frightened me even when I had nothing to live for. How could I not laugh at the irony of that? Death was no different from a life without purpose, yet I feared it. I put the bomb on the floor, my hands trembling. Then I sat down on the floor as well and leaned against the wall. As I did, the fatigue from the few days of walking got to me, and I felt groggy all of a sudden. My consciousness disconnected in the silent darkness. Wouldn't it be nice if death visited me now, so that I would simply slip into an eternal slumber, never to awaken again? But no, I would never be allowed to enjoy such a peaceful end. 2 days later. That's interesting. What was that? An unfamiliar voice screaming? I knew something was wrong when I woke up to that. I could always pretend like nothing happened, but my feet were already moving in the direction of the scream. As I ran, the smell of fire was so intense, it was what is happening was burning my nose. It was the stench of fighting. The screaming was coming from multiple people. Were they trying to get away from something? I ran into the schoolyard and focused my hearing on what was happening outside the school. I could hear multiple sets of footsteps getting closer. Since I couldn't see their exact location, I simply waved in the general direction of the sounds. Over here! I kept waving. That seemed to work. The frantic footsteps became louder and louder. I raised my hands to indicate I wasn't holding any weapons. As I did, the approaching group stopped a distance away from me. They were panting hard, as if they had been running for a long time. Wait a minute, who are these people? Definitely not the Special Defense Unit. Are they natives of this planet? Were you being chased by whom? Nobody answered me. I didn't even know if we spoke the same language. Couldn't have been Takumi or the others chasing them, so invaders? You can hide here if you want. This place was destroyed a while ago. It's unlikely anyone will come looking for you here. Still no response, but I could sense they were listening to me. The cafeteria is stocked with more than enough food for all of us. The mystery group wasn't moving at all. I didn't even hear them whispering among themselves. They were probably communicating with each other non-verbally. Or maybe they were trying to decide who would get to attack me first. After all, to the natives of this planet, I was the invader. In case you haven't noticed, I'm blind. I don't know how many of you that are here, and obviously won't be able to attack you. Still no response. Anyway, I'm headed back inside. Follow me if you intend to hide here. I turned back on the mystery group and started walking. I was completely defenseless. If they killed me, they could have this hiding spot all to themselves. Yet they followed after me politely. When I staggered, they would even stop and wait out of consideration for me. One step at a time. This is actually very interesting. I'm sad we're probably like right near the end of whatever route this is. This could be a really cool split thing. Which is kind of like my one little baby issue with this game right now. It's that some of these endings feel like they're happening too soon. Like they could go a little further and then end. Even if you get the same content of that ending, I feel like they could have done more. I don't know. It is what it is. I'm taking care to use a route that could not be seen from the outside. Interesting. Finally, I found myself back in the cafeteria with the mystery group in tow. This place should be safe. You can eat anything you find here. After that, I went back to my usual spot and sat down again. Huh? Where was my bag? I remember I'd left it here. I felt around the floor next to me with my right hand for the bag that contained the undying flame bomb. Where was it? Where could it be? Something heavy suddenly fell into my lap. Someone had placed something there. I gingerly touched it with my fingertips. It was my bag. You found it for me? I asked my surroundings, but received no response, like always. I then put my bag on my shoulders so that I would never lose it again. Leaning against the wall, I let my hearing take over. I heard the sounds of rummaging for food. It didn't seem like they were interested in attacking me for now. It was likely they would leave once the enemies that were after them went away. Then I would be back to waiting for day 100 here, all alone, so that I could witness the ending that everyone made for themselves. Sometime later, I heard the sound of a can being opened. I guess they decided to eat the food that was here. They sat a cautious distance away, but were still close enough to keep an eye on me. I hoped they got something to eat they like it. Oh God, Eito. Stop it! You're making me really like you from your perspective! Since I couldn't see, I couldn't even choose the kind of food I wanted to eat. That reminded me of the 5 cans of pickled fish I had to eat in a row last night. I inadvertently nodded off, even though I hadn't been feeling particularly sleepy. And thus, I fell asleep while being surrounded by an unknown number of natives. Perhaps it was because I felt no animosity from them. I could sense they were friends as they huddled closely together to eat and rest in this unknown place. Maybe they were sharing their favorite foods with each other. Maybe they were exchanging jokes with each other so quietly that I couldn't hear. Whatever it was, the atmosphere was like a comfortable blanket over my body, warming me up and making me sleepy. Like something I once had myself up until a short while ago. How did I not realize sooner what a beautiful thing that had been? This is very... Somebody was shaking my shoulders. I sensed that I had been surrounded by a few people who were looking down at me. Whoa. Actual designs? What is it?
Why are you here?
It was the voice of a child, a young girl who seemed to be about 8 to 9. A native of this planet, a Futuran child. Thinking back, I realized I had never met anyone from this planet before, neither during any defensive battles nor when I was with Veshnes. Had they been isolated from the war? Maybe in a shelter of sorts? Like the Tokyo residential complex?
Why are you alone?
The girl asked again. Since she was speaking as their representative, they were likely a group of children. I could sense wariness in her tone of voice. It was as if this was a tense cross-examination, and my responses would determine their next course of action. Well, one thing led to another, and I wasn't allowed to stay with my friends anymore. That's why I came here by myself. Why? What happened? I did something bad and ended up hurting the others. That's why I can't stay with them anymore. Upon hearing me say something bad, the girl took one step back. An astute decision. Were you forced out? No, I went away of my own free will. It's still too dangerous. Just because I don't want you back on the team doesn't mean I want to force you to leave the whole school. If you promise to stay in your cell and not interfere, you can stay. It was so like Takumi to say that. In fact, his words made me waver. I wavered. Waver? Oh God, why is that word tripping me up? For a brief moment, I wanted to cling to those words and selfishly feel like I had been forgiven. But it was pointless for me to stay. I don't belong there. I could never, ever forgive myself for doing the unforgivable to them. That's why I had to leave. You can't go back anymore? No, I can't go back anymore. That's why I'm here. What about you? Were you being chased by something? At that, I could hear murmuring from behind the girl. They seemed to be discussing whether or not to reveal the answer to me. We can't go back either. Why not?
Because we broke our promise.
She sounded so very sad. I didn't know what the other Futurans looked like, having only seen the commanders, but it seemed like they felt sadness, the same way we did. What promise did you break? We were told not to go outside, but we all went anyway because we thought we'd be okay. But we got lost and ended up in an unfamiliar place. Monsters kept chasing us, and we got farther and farther away from home. And that was how you ended up here? I think she must have nodded. There were other people living on this planet besides the commanders and invaders. At the very least, these children probably had nothing to do with the war. Since they were being pursued, they were likely targets as well. They were targets even though they had no way of fighting back, unlike us? You don't know how to go back? No. There should be a map somewhere in this facility. If you can find it, you may be able to find a way back home. I wish I could help you look for it, but as you can see, I won't be very helpful in that department. So feel free to look for it yourselves. The children other than the girl in front of me immediately scattered about in all directions, likely taking my advice to look for the map. There had to be a map somewhere around, since maps were indispensable for warfare. They would surely find one if they split up. And once they did, they were likely to depart by tomorrow, leaving me alone here to wait for the end by myself. I heard a soft thud next to me, an indication that the girl in front had moved to sit neck down next to me. Huh? She was so close that I could touch her if I just stretched my hand out. You're being way too trusting here, Missy. Or maybe she felt like I posed no danger because I couldn't see?
No chance of forgiveness.
Huh? Oh, you mean me? Yeah, aren't you sad you can't go back? Nah, it's too late for me. Why? Good question. Because the mistake I made was too big to be atoned for. Nobody will forgive me. That's why I can't go back. Okay. She started chomping down ravenously on an open can of food. Most likely, these children simply wanted to take a peek at what was going on outside and had not planned to end up so far away from home. The possibility of not being able to make it back would have never occurred to them since they broke their promise to the adults out of mere curiosity.
Maybe we won't be forgiven too.
She wondered out loud as she ate her food, but not being able to make it back home was not the only worry on these children's minds. They also feared that, like me, they wouldn't be allowed back into the fold again. I could immediately think of a number of encouraging statements I had gleaned from the books that I had read, but then I would be lying to them, something I was adverse to doing to these children. However, that also meant I now had nothing comforting to say to her, being somewhat unforgiven myself. In the end, I simply kept quiet, and she too said nothing more after that. When the children who had gone searching returned, they huddled back together. Their whispering voices eventually became softer and softer, until everyone fell asleep. With a hand on the bomb in my lap, I eventually drifted into slumber as well. This is strange. This is a strange format.
Wake up!
Wake up! Huh? I jolted awake when I felt my arm being tugged on. What happened? Come with us! The children were already awake, but something was clearly wrong. They were as panicked as they had been when they first came here. They pulled me outside, second to last Defense Academy. As I felt the wind on my skin, I could also smell the scent of blood mixed with it. Look there! I'm sorry, but I can't see. I felt her hand that had been pulling me along suddenly let go, as if she had forgotten that I was blind. Can you describe what's going on? The monsters are coming this way. I think they've realized there are people here. How many? Too many to count. Some of the children were shouting while others were trying to calm themselves down. Some started crying and others got angry. Nobody had expected this to happen. They left their home without thinking too deeply about the consequences. It never likely crossed their minds that leaving was tantamount to breaking their promise. Now they regretted it. They wished they had never left. Now that they were facing the grim reality of death, they were starting to give up. They resigned themselves to the possibility that they might die without ever being forgiven. Did you find it? What? The way home. Yes, we found a map. But there's no point. We still can't go back. Why not? Because of the monsters or because you might not be forgiven for breaking your promise? No answer. Perhaps it was a little bit of both. How about this? I'll hold those monsters back and you guys run away once you find an opening. How is it gonna work? You can't fight. Hey, you give me too little credit. I'm actually pretty strong and I even have a weapon. But you can't see. I'll make it work somehow. Anyway, can you do what I just said?
But we broke our promise. Everyone must be so mad at us.
The sound of rumbling and stomping became louder and louder even as we spoke. I didn't need to use my enhanced hearing to know this was clearly a large army. Not as many as the ones we had faced in our defensive battles, but more than enough to cause a group of helpless children to despair. Time was quickly running out. I had to convince these children to flee right now. Listen, I won't say everything will be fine. Huh? That'd be really irresponsible of me, since I have no idea if you'll be forgiven for what you did. Instead, I'll tell you something I want you to remember. Words from the bottom of my heart. From a person whose life is based on made-up memories, goals, and grudges. Feelings I hadn't been enabled to convey until now.
Forgiveness isn't something dispensed on the spot, but based on the actions you choose to take after the mistake. So the most important thing is, what will you do from now on? If you want forgiveness, work hard to gain it, instead of dwelling on your mistakes, while there's still time for you to redeem yourself.
What do we do from now on?
I took out my infuser and drove it into my chest. There were likely no commanders among the approaching swarm. I could take a group of minions by myself. Now go!
But what about you?
I said go! I shouted at them angrily. The girl bolted at my command and the other children quickly followed. The little footsteps eventually faded into the distance. Good. Get as far away as you can. This strategy of mine wouldn't work otherwise. Oh, he's gonna blow himself up, isn't he? The next thing I heard was heavy stomping, indicating the invaders were marching ever closer. I gripped my weapon tightly and waited for them to get close. They would be pleasantly surprised to find me here. It was quite likely they would prefer to hunt a planet invader like me over native children. The children wouldn't be pursued. They would be safe as long as I could keep the enemies here. Well, here goes nothing. Ah! I could sense my class weapon. Oh, never mind. Tearing my enemy apart with that swing. Good, let me follow that up with thump crack. Right, left, front, back. The invaders started attacking non-stop. Whenever I felt something hit my body, I would swing my weapon in that direction. Skirk. It worked because it guaranteed I would hit something. I kept repeating this while moving around. However, thump crack. Wah. Well, this was a shame. I thought it would have lasted longer than this. Oh god, he looks so pitiful. I had underestimated the sheer force of their numbers. The school invaders lunged at me as one when I left myself open after attack. My class armor protected me, but it had its limits. Since my data had been removed from the Revive-O-Matic again, I would be killed for real if I continued fighting. But I couldn't let them kill me. They would continue chasing the children if they did. I had to take out every last invader, here and now, if I wanted the children to be safe. But why? Just my pride, I suppose. Even I had my pride. Ending a defective life by using it to protect someone else wasn't that bad of an idea. Although my efforts to gain forgiveness came a tad bit too late, I was still a former member of the Special Defense Unit. That said, I also knew I was fighting a losing battle. In my current strength, I couldn't fight this many enemies at once. Couldn't even be proper bait or stall for time. Only one thing left to do then. Concentrated attack knocked my class weapon out of my hand. Now you've done it. Thud, thud, thump, clang, clang, clang. The invaders surrounded me, now defenseless, and started battering me with all their might. Excruciating pain rippled through my body, despite the protection of the class armor. I thought I might lose consciousness before death paid me a visit. The weight on top of me became heavier and heavier. More and more invaders were piling on me, so that they might kill me. That'll do. That'll do just fine.
It's time.
Eito! I reached inside the bag I had been shielding my body and with my body and touched the button that would detonate the bomb.
Huh?
The answer to your question is yes. That is indeed possible. But what would even be the point? Very well, I assume I get to choose which memories to implant. Even though all that does is deepen the emptiness in your heart.
Well, I certainly won't stop you if that is what you want. I would have preferred you to become a proper war asset instead of whatever this is.
Yeah.
That is my honest opinion.
I asked C-Ray for a favor back then. He took me to the infirmary and carried out the requested procedure. Memory manipulation. At first, I thought about asking him to erase all of my memories. Everything would be gone. Sadness, anger, remorse, everything. But it was only right for me to die as my own self, my own buggy, corrupted, defective self. I was the burden I had to bear until the bitter end. Ooh, that's a good line. So I made that selfish request. Yeah. For non-existent memory. Oh no, that's so sad. Memories of me having a great time with everyone. Where is he? Well, being aware of the duplicity of these memories, that they were all lies. Yet here I was right now, surrounded by the warmth and happiness I felt back then. Oh, there he is.
Takumi,
Eito!
it's unfortunate. I won't get to witness how things turn out for you.
Excuse me.
I'm praying for your victory. No, actually, I'm praying for your
Eito!
happiness.
Oh!
From the bottom of my heart.
Oh my god! Eito! Oh, that's so sad. 3. Goodbye, Eito route. Praying for your happiness. Well, goddamn. Poor guy. Anyway, guess we're going to rewind even further next time, but until then, I'm afraid this is going to have to be farewell and 07 to you, Eito. Farewell.